And this brings me maybe to the final piece that I wanted to get to cover today, which is that I think of developmental circling as particularly applicable to a business context, much more than surrendered leadership, for example. In that, because there's a more explicit goal orientation or developmental orientation, I just think that this would be very attractive to people who have a more of a business development focus rather than a personal development focus. And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about that.
Yeah, I do. I mentioned earlier on that I'm very interested in bringing the practice of circling to some extent into business. And actually, what you just said really highlights one of the aspects of that. Circling in the way that it's practiced, surrendered leadership, really would be a stretch to bring into the normal business context. It doesn't look anything like what a business meeting looks like. It's a good background practice that can allow someone to, I found that the more that I practiced surrendered leadership, the more that I was able to bring myself forward into the workplace and be with something where I was challenged or I saw somebody else was challenged, even without the context of developmental circling, right? Mm-hmm. Just individually myself being with something and noticing what wanted to arise and being able to bring attention to that. Mm-hmm. So there's a whole range, I think, of possibility there. But developmental circling, you're right. I think that's very much a good practice for getting stuff done and being with the challenge and impact of who we are in the face of getting stuff done.
Right. Good. I like that because it's not just about getting stuff done, but it's about noticing how we feel about that, right?
Right.
There's sort of a masculine orientation here, but it's sort of softened by a more feminine or sort of a more being-based way of being. And I think this can be powerful for typical businesses that are typically hyper masculine in their orientation. Like we're going to get this stuff done, and how you feel is irrelevant, right?
Yeah, that's beautiful. So this is one of the things that I think is very powerful. A question that arises in my mind is, why has circling arisen now? And in some sense, we've gotten so masculine, so transactional. We've externalized the relational to such an extent that it's got to find an expression somewhere. And that is part of what I think is the ground of being that it has circling arise as a modality to really be, right? We've forgotten how to be, and it's not an all or nothing thing, right? There is a way of returning that art of being into the workplace, into the space of, yes, include the masculine and include the feminine. It really isn't about eliminating one or the other. It's really the dance between the two, the real synergy. So yeah, that's beautiful. I love that.
Well, and that's beautiful, David. And I think we'll end there. And I'll just add that sort of ironically, we're actually extremely much more effective when we include beingness in in the formula of how we're going to show up in business, right?
Absolutely.
It's becoming evident.